And starting off with a question that we're going to dive into is it selfish to prioritize your own needs and desires? And then I also today want to question are our conversations about self-care good? Or are our self-care conversations just really more of a box to check or a societal thing that makes us feel good and we're not actually making the changes we need? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to challenge some of these notions and ideas and whether it's around self-sacrifice that's been ingrained in us by our capitalistic structure, whether it's the parenting pressures we feel to the corporate wellness programs. We're going to kind of talk about some of the performative nature that we see in some of these, and also what true self-care may or may not be. So I'm Luke, and I'm joined by PJ and Julia. And yeah, I almost said good morning, but good afternoon, you two.
Hey,
Hey,
good afternoon.
good afternoon. Happy almost 4th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Rounding up, it's the day is mostly over. So rounding up, it's basically July 4th at this point. Right? Is
Yeah.
that how that works?
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So last week was it last week? A week and a day ago. Not that it's really that important, but 8 days ago, I was in Seattle and I was at a Juneteenth festival. And I was talking with this woman at this healthcare clinic that had a booth at this event, and she had self-care on it. And I was just curious at what kind of perspectives she would have. And I said, I get this sense when we talk about self-care in America, because we talk about it like a thing, like an activity you go do, like play a video game, or it's like, ooh, I did self-care today, or rewind back to March and I was in Tampa and somebody was telling me, they're like, oh man, in May we're doing this challenge to do like 20 minutes of self-care a day. And I asked this woman in Seattle, I was like, do you ever wonder, like, are the way we talk about it by making it an activity that we do versus like just core to how we live as a human? I was like, do you think we're ever like causing our own problems? I probably didn't articulate my question very well. And she responded with a typical, like, oh no, I think we're making great progress. And I'm actually not super optimistic that we are making great progress on this. And when we think about freedom, when we think about taking care of ourselves and living a vibrant life, whatever that means for each individual, I just find myself questioning, is this conversation we have around self-care, are we actually making a bigger problem? Or maybe not a bigger problem, we're just not actually getting what we want, which is loving ourselves, thriving. I love that. I love the word thriving because it's not just a matter of existing, but like who we are, how we show up in the world. I want to thrive. I want other people to thrive. And I don't think our conversations around self-care lead to that. I think it might lead to that for some, but I think like if you're like, ooh, man, I got a manicure on Friday, I did self-care for the week, I would love to be like, just question, like, are there other, like, is that self-care or is that just a nice activity? So anyway, so there's some thoughts to kick us off. Yeah, where do one of you two want to take us from here?
I think that self-care is it should be standard operating procedure, but it's not. And if self-care to you means getting your nails done, I think it's an individual thing. But I think that it is the one big problem I see is we make it a huge deal when we take care of ourselves, and that is that's just wrong in my opinion. Putting yourself first is not selfish. And yeah, so that's my initial take is that whatever self-care, it's an individual thing, and it also shouldn't be something that is, oh my god, I did self-care.
And PJ, I appreciate your comments about like the like me saying like somebody getting their nails done being self-care. It's not a criticism that I just want to be clear, like that's not something that I'm like, oh, that can't be self-care. But when I hear somebody be like, that's what I did for my self-care, that's when I'm
Right.
like, that's it. Not as in like you didn't do enough. It's not like it's not gatekeeping like what's good enough. But if you have one activity in a week, to me, I'm like, is that really helping you thrive? And if it is, I don't want to like sit here, but like I've so this is Forging Human Connection live streaming. All right. So like I think about everything as connection. I meet people with whom I have great relationships with that are too worn out by society to be able to show up to relationships. And so to me, I'm like, we have problems in this country that we're busy looking at legislation and hot button topics and inflation, and we're not recognizing like we're not talking about a lot of these things that affects us as individuals and how we create a shared community and how we show up. And for me, that's just, I don't know. Anyway, so Julie, I'm going to shut up for a moment so people don't just listen to me. Everybody tunes in for you two anyways. I'm just here for eye candy.
Is that what it is?
That's exactly it.
Listen, I think when we talk about self-care, when we talk about anything, we want to define it first, right? So like when I say self-care, I want it to encompass my physical care, my mental care, my human connection care, right? Because we know that human beings are wired for connection. So we have to take care of that part of us that has that need. We've got to take care of our hobbies and joy. Right. So when we think about self-care, we so often lump it into, okay, I did something for myself, which was, you know what? I didn't do the laundry tonight. I decided to leave it for tomorrow. Like, no, and I think part of it is, we spent so much time conditioning ourselves to be self-sacrificing that we have a really difficult time going back and thinking about taking care of ourselves as anything but selfish. So I agree with you that we are not where we want to be in the category. But we're also the fact that we can have the conversations. I think it means that we're moving forward. I think I'll just be honest with you. One of the things that's always on my mind in this is the disparity between socioeconomic classes and races. Like what white women can do as self-care and what women of color can do as self-care are really, really different. What, people in different socioeconomic groups can do as self-care and what other people can do is really different. And so as we have the conversation, right, we want to be cognizant of that. But I remember feeling guilty for, not responding to my kids' needs or not responding to what someone wanted from me. And I think it just takes a long time to do that unconditioning. But if we think about it in terms of, like our physical self-care, our mental self-care, our connection self-care or community, right, our joy and our hobbies, then we can try to, arrange those things and work within them. So.
Yeah. So like, I feel like we have like probably 3 or 4 different things we're all kind of talking about here. Is one is like this topic, I think, of selfishness is really important when we're talking about self-care. And I want to make sure we talk about selfishness. Think about self-care. Part of the thing that I think, like when you open up there, Julia, you're like, let's define it. And when people talk about self-care, for me, I don't actually practice self-care. I don't use that language because I'm just living. So for me, when I listen to people talk about doing stuff for self-care, I'm like, that's my bedtime routine. That's my workout because I work out because it affects my brain chemistry, my whole physiological experience. It changes the way I experience anxiety. It feels good. I enjoy it. Like, I don't do self-care. It's not an activity I have. So for me, it's kind of like, that's one of the things I think is weird when people are like, oh man, do something for 20 minutes in your day. And I'm like, what is wrong as a society? Not as any individuals, no blame, no shame, but where we have a culture where doing something to take care of yourself, whether that's relaxing under a tree for an hour, if it's going on a walk, if it's, stretching or, getting your nails done, it's like, to me, those are just living life. It's not an activity. And I know we live in a culture where we label things self-care, but I'm like, but then it's like, oh, I did self-care, check. But like, did you really care for yourself? Or do you just do a thing that was nice, but do you need more? Are we learning to listen to ourselves if we are like, oh man, I did self-care for 20 minutes, check, I'm good to go. And that might be all some people need. But I think, like, I wonder, do we lose the art of listening to ourselves and what we need when we leave it as like a checkbox?
Yeah, listen, I don't know that Americans have listened to themselves in the last 150, 200 years. I mean, if you, like, we haven't. I mean, when you think Americans post-industrial revolution, like, so prior to the Industrial Revolution, we lived and worked in farming communities. or we were in nomadic groups. And then so now we are industrialized, and we don't think about that. What we want is, because we have gone from growing our own food into being able to purchase everything in boxes, we want self-care and mental health and things like that to also come in boxes and pills and things, right? So I don't think a lot of people have the mentality that you do, Luke. I don't think people have done
No, I don't.
the
Yeah.
thought work and the things that you do. But when we talk about it, like understanding where society is based on, the way our society has been in the last 100 years, right? We don't go in, we go to a pill. We don't go in, we go to a doctor to get a prescription, to get a whatever, to fix it so that we can go back to work, because your work is your worth, right? And if our employers can tell us that, listen, we've got a yoga program, we got a meditation program, you know what? I'm going to pay for the Calm app for you. All of my employees are going to get the Calm app. Yep. Get it together, folks. What we're into wellness here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so we put Band-Aids on things. And I think, though, that when we have the conversations with folks about these topics, it's really freeing for them to acknowledge that, listen, like, I get it. I get why you would go to a doctor and want medication or want a quick fix, as opposed to the work that comes on the other end of it. And I get why you would think that you're selfish, but the reality is that you're not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think too, Julia, you said something at the beginning, which is I've just been sitting here processing that that self-care does mean something drastically different based on class, and as I sit here and think about how I practice self-care, and think about others that's the things I do aren't really an option. If you're truly feel like you're in survival mode, then the self-care for that person is going to look drastically different than self-care for me. I might be grinding and hustling and all those things that are part of today's culture, but I'm not striving to survive at this level of my life. You know what I mean? That's not something that it's not something that I have to deal with.
And I don't. I think it's hard, Luke. I think it's hard for like you mentioned earlier about people being worn out by political issues and then things that are going on, and I think there's part of that we want people to be engaged and to be knowledgeable, because I think that's one of the reasons that we got to where we are, is because people just didn't engage. They weren't outraged enough to go and vote and to do what they needed to do, right? But the flip side of that is that we don't stay stuck in the doom of it, that we do something to take action and then we move into something else, right? Or we can use that as a way to connect with people and to give back, and not use it as a way to beat ourselves up all over again. But I agree with you. There are definitely people who are stuck in those spaces, with the political climate and stuff like that.
Yeah. I just, for me, it's been so interesting as I've because I feel like it was just in the last year or two that I woke up to like the self-care conversation happening and realizing how weird it feels to me. And not in a like anybody who's like practicing self-care, like, oh man, what are you doing? No, like I'm like, yes, anything you'll do for yourself. I'm like, yes. It's when I think of the book Rest is Resistance. And while I know for her as a Black woman, she's talking a lot about how she's, resting is standing up against culture, but like for her within standing up against the atrocities committed to her ancestors. I'm like, I also think like rest, like I think that's also, it's a big deal when we can actually just stop, slow down, and we're resisting a cultural mechanism. Like I'm a fan of capitalism. I also think I'm a bigger fan of humans being cared for. And so, like, to me, I get this sense that, like, we're in this space to where, because of the hustle and grind, because of this glorification of, overworking, we end up where it's just like, I mean, what do you think about, like, the badge of honor of, like, oh, I was at work till late on Monday, and I'm like, I wasn't, and I was at home with my kids, and we played video games, and like, and so I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to me. But like, I'd love us to transition and talk about this, like, selfishness, because I think when we think about the cultural, like, the things of the hustle and grind, I think that's a really slow process to start to move away from when we live in this. Um, and I could be wrong, but I wonder if it's like a place for people to start examining, like, this idea of, like, if I take time for me, whether we call it self care for me or humaning, whatever we want to call it, you're taking time for yourself. Let's talk about this idea that makes somebody selfish. PJ, you want to kick us off on that?
Yeah. I still struggle with that, and I logically I realize, that saying of, um, in the event of emergency on a plane, put your oxygen mask on
Yeah.
first. I logically get that, um, but I struggle with that, uh, because it is, to your point, it is against our culture. Um, in America, at least, it's against the culture of hustle, grind, and to say, okay, I'm going to take this time and take care of me first. It is selfish in the definition of the
Yeah.
word, but it's not a bad thing. And that's where I've been working through now, is that, yes, by the definition of the word, it is selfish, but that's not a bad thing, because um, you can't charge a dead battery with a dead battery.
Yeah.
So if I am going to be, someone that can bring, um, can help others, it's difficult, if not impossible. Like I said, you can't charge a dead battery with a dead battery.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so, like, what are you discovering? Like, what's this process like for you in trying to rethink, like, getting okay with being selfish?
I'd love to say it's easy, but it's
No.
not. It's not. It's that, um, what for me, it's the feeling that I get after the result of of me taking care of myself. And what I mean by that is that it's not necessarily that, hey, taking the moments, whatever they are, to take care of myself. It's the energy that I get from that allows me to go do something else that, I find is my fuel.
Mm.
If that makes sense. It's not that it's that it's the result of stop, rest, take care of myself, um, and then what I'm able to produce, whether it be a stronger relationship with my wife, stronger relationship with my kids, better performance in all around. It's it's those things. It's when I realize, oh wow, I would not have got here had I not stopped to take care of me.
Mm. Yeah.
I
What's
dig it.
coming up for you, Mets?
Um, so for me, it's redefining it now as a right? Like, I don't think it's selfish at all.
Yeah.
It's a right, and I don't, like, I am working to reshift and reframe it in my mind as like, I am not refueling to fuel someone else, right? Like, I am taking care of me because I am a human being worthy of
Mm.
being taken care of by myself, right? Like, and that just is like, I'm not fucking selfish. I'm not. Like, I'm a human being who deserves to take care of themselves. Growing up in a society where we're constantly told it, especially if you're in a marginalized community, right? Like where our performative work is our worth, you are conditioned to give all of you, your authenticity, your identity, your worth, your value for the approval of someone else, right? So like you don't even know what self-care is or means because it feels so opposite of what you've been conditioned to do your whole life. So for me, it's just this process of identifying it as a right, as something that I get to do for me, not for the benefit of anyone else. Like, and if it refuels me and I choose to give that benefit to other people, then cool. But it's not a requirement. I don't have to rest just so that I can serve. I can just rest, which is if you grew up in churches, that's the opposite of what we're taught, right? Like we're all supposed to have a good servant's heart, right? We're supposed to be servant leaders, like that's, if so-and-so has it worse than we do, we're supposed to be showing up on their doorstep and doing all that. Like I deserve to rest just to rest. Right. Which is, again, I will say as confidently and as fluidly as I say that, it is a struggle every day of my life. It is a struggle.
For me, like, so I don't feel any of the guilt around resting, but I do feel a ton of anxiety with my work. So it's like, so for me, it's this anxiety. Like if I'm not working, then I'm not fulfilling my value and my clients are going to fire me. And my clients are like, Luke, make sure you rest up. And I'm like, you're right. Like they value me. I show up, I do really hard work, but then I'm like, if it's not the weekend and I'm not working, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? And people are going to, so that's like, for me, the challenge in resting in different spaces. For whatever reason, I don't have the thing that what seems like almost everybody around me has of this like barrier to taking care of myself. I can't work 90-hour work weeks. I have a switch that flips off and goes, oh, gotta go do something fun. And so like I'm grateful for that. And I think that's probably whatever it is about me. And I was raised in the church. I was raised with the idea of like let's serving others. And I live very much a life where I'm like every single day, even whether it's whatever, every day, and I mean this every single day of my life, I'm doing things to show up for other people. But like taking care of myself is just it's literally part of my daily routine. And it's not even, I don't do it so I can do a better job. I don't do it so I'm a better partner. I don't do it so I'm a better dad. I recognize that it influences that. But for me, it's like, this is me living. How can I live? Like, I want to enjoy life. And so for me, enjoying life means my bedtime routines involve sitting in bed, listening to an audiobook and using a Theragun across my body. And like, I do that every night. And I don't know. I'm actually not entirely sure where I'm going with this conversation.
Have you always done that though?
I'm not there yet.
Have I always? I don't know. Well, the Theragun's a 2-year thing.
You've worked with a ton of thought coaches and done a ton of work, right? And so either you are a closeted narcissist, right? Who like really just loves some of you, right? I mean, like, and you're like, Matt, world, shutting this down. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so I wonder how much of that is because of the work that you've done. Or was it always you had to shut off, like, I want to go do something fun? Because listen, I love to have fun. There's something about, and I don't know if it's the practice of law or life or our culture, society that kind of like worked that out of me at some point. And again, though, here's the deal. So much of this, I don't know that it is society or the fact that we're unwilling to hold boundaries sometimes. So like me allowing society to make me not do like that's a boundary issue for me. Like, hey, and then maybe some of my stress is because I'm not living in alignment with, like I'm saying I'm into wellness, but at the same time, I'm not doing it because I'm not doing things for fun. Right. So,
I do want to have this quote up here. I love me some of me when you just said that. What I love about that, you said that in a recent stream, and because I love that quote. So a couple things. One is I am also like, I think of everything through a productivity lens. And if there's anything, my partner Steph definitely challenges me on sometimes, like it doesn't have to be productive. Like for me, I'm like, my rest is productive. My friend hanging out time is productive, but I'm not sure I actually have a problem because I typically think like I do this with intentionality, but then once I'm there, I'm just there. So it's not like it's like, oh man, I want to be efficient and maximize my human connection this week. So I'm going to have dinner with this person on Thursday. Okay, cool. I'm going to go do this on Saturday. Awesome. I've got this human connection stuff going on. But then once I show up to dinner, I'm not thinking, oh man, I need to maximize this moment. I'm like, I'm just here. So, but to your question of like, how have I always been, when I was 19 years old and I first started a single page LLC, which is Russell Media is a DBA of that. And so here I am at 19 years old, 20 years old. I remember I joined this mastermind group and these different networking groups. And I declared one day I was going to work 4 days a week because I was like, all the different research, just like your work expands to the time, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, you know what if I just work 4 days a week? So I probably did that for about a year. And I remember all kinds of people were like, oh, I couldn't do that in my business because of blah, 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 blah. And so when I think back to being 19, 20 years old, from a business space, I was playing with, I'm always kind of exploring, but I was playing with those boundaries of like, what if I just took Fridays and like rode my bike or go hang out with friends or play video games, or I don't actually play that many video games, but like, so it's like, I have had this for a long period of time. I've like, for me, if I have a really high hour work week, it's because I was travel doing on-site work with a client or I'm at a conference and it's like all day stuff. Otherwise, it's mostly like, for me, 40, 50 hours a week. Like already I'm like, should we humans even be working that much? Because humans benefit from play and different kinds of things. I don't know. But anyway, so like, I think it's been a long standing thing for me.
But the routines and the taking care of yourself, has that been a long-standing routine, right? Because that's one of the things that we're talking about. So like, I want to cut my work week down out of like from a productivity standpoint, or were you also doing that from I know that I need to rest and need off time?
Oh, I did it from an the institution
Yeah.
of like, you're supposed to work 5 days a week. And I was like, well, screw that. I'm going to try 4 and see what happens. But so my anti-institutional and do whatever everybody else does, that definitely drove that decision as far as I remember.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are you thinking, PJ?
Yeah, I'm thinking I wish I was where both of you are, and
Be where you are.
I'm not there. I'm not there in my journey.
So let me tell you though, like, so this week it's been like a massive struggle for like the last several months or the last couple of weeks. And then I've like, so I'll be 45 in November and I'm hitting, or actually I'm in perimenopause, right? So like my hormones are shifting in like I have zero drive, zero ambition, zero desire to do anything at all. Super moody, super whatever. And no amount of the tools that like I've done will get me through this, without just, like recognizing it and owning it and some of those things. So I don't know. I think we're all where we are on the journey and then we hit dips and then we hit whatever, but we just keep moving, I don't know.
I'm at a place where I know I need to. I know that it feeds my soul, but I still struggle with, well, all of the shoulds, you should work 60 hours a week. You should, be there for everyone. I still struggle with that, with the shoulds.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So let's like, before we go to our little faux break, what I don't know, what's like a thought you're gonna walk away from with this?
What I walk away from is no surprise, it came from Julia. That I honor the fact that my self-care is going to look different from others, and I also honor the fact that I am not in a place where survival is my main concern, and yeah, so I'm further along my journey than I thought I was before this conversation. So I would say to anybody listening who's, you know, at a similar place, give yourself grace, and and don't give up just because it gets hard.
Love it. All right, I'm going to hit us to the break, and then we'll be back in just a second. Thank you, PJ. We'll see you all in a second.
Oh, that time it was 30 seconds.
Was it? What happened to Luke?
Oh, where's Luke?
He's like, I might not be on immediately after the 30-second. Oh, so he's like jump in without him. All right, great. We're jumping in without him.
Oh, all right. Now
So listen, this is what I'm going to tell people. Number one, like self-care doesn't have to be expensive. It's getting up in the morning and going for a walk. It's like a stretch. It's like all the little things that we can do. It doesn't have to be like signing up for a gym membership or a program or whatever. But that's my thought. I mean, just like start with the things that are easy and don't try to, you know, do it all at one time. Just, you know, get a walk in every day.
There's a quote by Arthur Ashe, which is start where you are, use what you got, do what you can. And I think about that a lot in my journey, and I have to remind myself. Self-care can be reading a book recommended by a friend, which I'm now halfway through. Your second book suggestion was the emotional agility. So,
do you love it? My gosh, I love it. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. It's such a powerful statement, and it's something that, you know, as I go through my journey, my growth journey, and things that I talk about with my therapist, that the idea of, oh wait, let me just feel it. Let me feel it, and then I'll respond as and because I'm feeling it, I'm just you know, that now I can determine what response is appropriate, and if anger is appropriate, that's okay. But or if joy is, you know, whatever is appropriate, but feeling it and allowing yourself
and admitting it, right? How many times we have people where they're like, no, I'm not mad. I'm like, yeah, listen, I would be pissed, right? Yeah. But I can be pissed and still do something else at the same. I can be pissed and happy in the same instance. But the holding it in and deny there's something about that, the incongruence with ourselves that I think drives so many of the problems that we have. Is like when I know that I'm angry and I lie to myself and I'm like, nah, it's fine. I'm lying to myself. And if I can't trust me, who can I trust? Right. And it's the same thing though. It's like when we're not living in alignment or we're struggling, it's like if we say that, you know, we are this person who values X or who does X, but our actions are not consistent with that, we have so much stress and anxiety. Right. And so I think, you know, people should take a look at their values, right? And then their actions, and then maybe spend some time like reassessing the values. You know, like maybe this phase of your life, what you need to value, or that what you want to value is financial security. So you're hustling for the next 5 years. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, right? Like, this is my value, right? But don't say that you value, you know, wellness, and then you're at your office until, you know, 1 or 2 a.m. Because what you're doing, and again, it's not that there's anything wrong with any phase of life that you're in, but you're lying to yourself. And when you lie to yourself, you create anxiety. When you're living inconsistent with the values that you defined, you create anxiety and stress and judgment for yourself. right? So, for me, it's like this part of my life is like, because of my brain is the thing that has always worked. And because of the intense brain fog with like all of the shifts that my body's going through right now, it is a huge struggle for me to know like what I'm on top of and what I'm not on top of and what's going on. And then like trying to give myself grace as I navigate that. But if I tell myself that, I have to be excellent in everything that I do, like that's my value is excellence, then I'm lying to myself because I'm not right now. And that's okay, because my best is not what my best was a year ago. Like right. My body's changing. And we I don't know. We just don't talk about that enough.
Oh man, yeah. I want to like, so because I missed the first part here, but I want to like this whole idea of like recognizing your body is going through dramatic changes. I think like,
I did
like,
I'm going to send you guys a picture. I did a webinar the other day for MTMP, and then I sent it to Sharon. When I got done, I had my first hot flash, right? And my whole shirt covered in sweat. And I'm like working through a webinar and I'm like I'm dripping on my desk. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening to my body? And I've always been able to just push through, right? Yeah. Listen, somebody dies, got it. We're going to bury them. We're going to get shit done. We're going to do whatever we got to do. We're going to just keep pushing. And then your body comes and is like, oh, your brain works really well. Let's take that away from you. Let's give you brain fog. Let's not let your body function. You're always super stable. Let's make you moody. I'm like, huh? Do you hate me?
So like, I'm feeling like I can't tell if you're just trying to flex that, like, even amidst your brain fog, you can still have such remarkable, incredible, and competent conversations. Because, like, when I have the mildest amount of brain fog, I'm like, I can't even understand the words that come out of my mouth. But you're over here, like, rocking and rolling.
So, I mean, candidly, so when you sent the text today, it was like, are we on? And I'm like, everything in me is like, I don't, like, my body feels really off. Like, I feel off today. But I'm like, you know what? Like, I feel better when I connect with people. Like, I need to make the decision to connect. I need to choose connection over letting this define me right now. But the brain fog, like the worst part of it, I think is the paralysis. So like the amount of time that I spent debating about whether to do this today or not to do this today. Should I do this today? Should I not? That mental energy that I'm not used to having to spend, because I'm just like, let's make a decision and move on. Let's do it and move on. Let's send it and move on. That paralysis is like, it depletes my energy.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. Way to go, ladies' bodies. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And I don't know why we don't have like that women don't talk about this, but I'm like, hello, we hit a brick wall and everybody wants to pretend like it's not a brick wall. Like, no, it's a brick wall.
Well, like, and we don't have like the fact, like, to me, it's remarkable that, like, I mean, because many women's menstruation cycles are very intense, and some people have lighter ones. It's not as disruptive for them, but a lot of people it's pretty disruptive. And yet, like, how can, like, do we really value people's well-being when we expect them to perform at 100% all the time, no matter what, whether you're going through sickness, you're going through a menstrual cycle, you're going through perimenopause,
Whatever. It's all the same. It's
hormones. Like, or people are dealing with grief and loss and all these different things that can affect us and the way we show up. And yet, as a society, even when it's like leave it at the door, I'm like, it doesn't work that way. And like, to me, and when people want to talk about like corporate well-being, and then we're still just expecting like whether you just went through divorce, well, you still gonna be able to hit those metrics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I hope so. Let's.
I wonder, like, with all of that, because it's gaslighting. Like, they tell us to take care of ourselves, but then you can't afford the insurance to get to the doctor to do the therapy to take care of yourself, right? They tell us now, like, pills could be bad for us. You need to be doing talk therapy, or you need to be doing DBT or CBT or all the other things, right? But you can't afford to go in and do that. And then you also can't take the time off from work to do that either. So when you're constantly gaslit to be like, take care of yourself, but really don't, how are you as an individual supposed to understand that enough to resist the system? Be like, yeah, I really should take care of myself. Like, the fact that there's like maternity leave is such an issue in this country, right? Like, when I was doing research on like what's going on with my body right now and things like that, the vast majority of the studies about what I need to be doing physically, like my difference in exercise, like I shouldn't be doing my long bike rides, I need to be lifting heavier. The vast majority of the studies were based on men. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure y'all aren't going through this, right? Where are your ovaries? You know, like, but we tell women to base their physical, you know, health on studies that are done with men. And then you want me to take care of myself, but like a man takes care of himself. I'm so concerned. I don't know.
You know, one of the things that jumps out is, you know, when we talk about grief, sickness, all of those things, those are things that, yeah, we expect people to perform no matter what, but at least we talk about those things. When it comes to women's health, we don't talk about it at all, and it is I mean, I know why, but I think it is really, really insane that that we're never supposed to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's I don't know that it's completely comparable, but like our country's really good at not talking about tough subjects, right? And if we acknowledge the pain that women go through, or we acknowledge the fact that, you know, we have different needs and things like that, then it's somehow like, well, the system failed and whatever. But you know, we have such a problem prioritizing anyone but like cisgender hetero white men. Right? I mean, look, the rate at which women of color are dying in childbirth is unacceptable. And then at the same time, we're like, affirmative action where we might actually have more doctors of color to help treat the women of color. No, we can't. We can't have that. But legacies, of course, why don't we keep the old white legacies? Because why would we not? Mm-hmm. Like it. So I guess I'm not surprised, but and it's one of the reasons why I intend to be really outspoken about it. I mean, it has thrown me for a loop like nothing else in my life has thrown me for a loop. Like for my brain not to work the way that I've always relied on it to work, for my body not to work, and I can't be the only woman who feels this way. Mm-hmm. And society is not going to talk about it, but I'll run my mouth about it. I don't know, but I guess I'm just not surprised at all, though.
What's your relationship to, and you may have covered this while I was out for a bit, but like in this conversation, how's your relationship to like taking like self-care shifted as you enter this whole new like experience with your mind and body?
It has highlighted for me the need for it more, right? Like the giving myself grace for the fact that I don't remember like a whole day. Something like, oh, I thought that was yesterday. Like, no, that was like 2 weeks ago. Like, 5 years ago, I would have jumped on my bike and been like, listen, if your brain's not going to work, your body's going to work, and we're going to ride it until both work. And I would like hit, 30, 40 miles to punish myself for not functioning. And I'm not punishing me for not functioning. Right. If I have an afternoon where I'm crying and I have no idea why the hell I'm crying, then like, I'm just crying. Cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to then go out and lift weights and punish myself for being upset and not being able to regulate and control myself. I'm no longer interested in controlling me the way that society wants us to control ourselves to perform. Right. Yeah. So that's been it, but it's still hard.
Yeah. Yeah. What's coming up for you, PJ?
There's so much there in as a father of I live in a house, raised 3 girls, and there's so many things that, quite frankly, that because I'm a hashtag girl dad, so many things that I've been exposed to as a man that I wouldn't have otherwise, and there's so many. There's so much bullshit that I'm trying not to. But there's so much bullshit that goes out there, that exists in the world around women's health issues, and the idea that that you're supposed to be silent, and that we can't talk about things that are that happen every single day. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
I couldn't come up with a better terminology. I apologize.
I was extremely engaging. I love it. Oh, thank you. Any other thoughts on that topic, PJ? Okay.
Nope.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up here, since it's nearing the 5:30 mark, and I have to hop off. But thank you both. Thanks everybody for listening. This is, I don't know, I enjoy these conversations with how we're like trying to explore and probe these topics, and we don't all see eye to eye on everything, and I think that's really beautiful. So I'm excited to just like kind of reflect on this and think about self-care over the next week until we talk again.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate y'all putting up with my craziness today.
Yep, I appreciate you both. Love everybody listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.